Good morning, guys, or afternoon, wherever you guys are. I'm Jose, and we're going to introduce you guys to a new series of mine called Trip Down Memory Lane. So basically, it's going to be talking about all the old WoW raids. I'm just essentially going to go through them all, and essentially what happens from time to time in these WoW raids, and my experiences from it as well. So let's just get right into it. Okay, so this used to be the Horde area where they all met up in Kargath. You guys may notice a little crevice here. If you guys do play Classic, you guys will know where this area is. So as you guys see here, basically Kargath is in ruins now. So basically before the raid, everyone would just basically group up here and get ready to go to the WoW raid. And the most infamous part of getting to Molten Core and Blackwing Lair and the other areas was this little passage here, where you basically rode through all together, essentially to get to Molten Core. And this is a little crevice. Basically you rode along this pathway, there was no mobs, and you just basically rode into here. So basically this Iron Summit flight path wasn't here previously and stuff like that. And for the Alliance, you'd be down here at Thorium Point, like you would start at Thorium Point, and Horde would just use the Kargath flight path to get to Molten Core. So Molten Core is a 40-man instance, raid instance in Classic, and it's the first raid instance that was released. And well, let's just say it was a particularly a new experience for a lot of people, like a lot of mechanics in the areas. And it's probably one of the most easiest raid instances that you could get introduced to. So basically Molten Core has multiple ways to enter it. So basically first, one of the entrances, if you are not attuned, so there's a thing called attunement, and one of the attunements is basically getting to the end of Blackrock Depths, getting the Molten Core shard, and passing to Loftos Riftwalker, who is down here. Alternatively, once you're attuned, you can just talk to Lothros and you enter MC. Alternatively, what you can do is you can jump through this window and you would enter MC normally, but it turns out that I am not MC attuned on my Demon Hunter. So what we're going to do is, alternatively, you can just talk to him and he'll transport you to MC. Basically, in the retail version of WoW, MC is considered, there's no attunement needed, but we also got the quest from him as well. As you see here, this is how you get tuned to the core, is that basically you do Blackrock Depths, and basically just outside the MC, since it's around about here, so you can see this Blackrock Depths. Outside here is where the core fragment is. So let's take the phone. That's it, and that's it. So first of all, everyone usually buffed up here to get ready for MC, and you had the first two packs, which is the Molten Giants, basically. So generally there's a new skip, I believe, in doing this, and the skip involves jumping along here. And basically what there is like a path, there's a terrain that you can path down here, and you can basically skip down to this Annihilator here. So these Annihilators, what you had to do, you had to stack on top of each other, because these guys would charge, and you would banish the other one. You would only take one at a time, because basically if they charge at the same time, you would die 100%. So what you do from here, you can actually go down to the Candace down there. Well, what you did is you took down the Surges, and you would kill the Destroyer. The Destroyer actually did more damage than the Giant, and you just wanted to get rid of them as quickly as you can. Now, we'll just keep, doing this as we go along. So in X-Balls, you have to pull all these areas. The Fire Lord, what you have to do, the Fire Lord would occasionally split up into two lesser adds, and you needed to make sure the adds died before they split up into more adds while DPSing the Fire Lord. Now, Core Hounds, they had one extra debuff, like whether, it would be a AoE Curse, an AoE Magic Damage, Fire Resist, and a Fear in general. Also, throughout this instance, there's Dark Iron Deposits, which are used to craft Fire Resist gear for your tank. So you wanted to cast Fire Resist gear for your tank. In this area as well, what you wanted to do is you want to pull the Lava Surges out. So what you do is you basically go in as a group, get a Hunter, pull the Lava Surges out, and then when the Lava Surges are pulled out, because of course you'll pull some Flame Imps as well, you'd basically go through here like a gauntlet. These Flame Imps will constantly respawn, and what you would do is basically get out here, LS all the Flame Imps, and AoE them down out here. So first we're going to get introduced to the first little area of the instance, which is going to be Lucifron and Magmadar. So basically with this Core Hound trash here, you have to kill all these Core Hounds at the same time, and if any of the Core Hounds were still alive, they would reignite all these other Core Hounds and they'd come back to life. That's why they stay here, and that's why they're not corpses. Lucifron was the first instance. Basically what happens is that Lucifron puts a curse on everyone that it does impending doom damage, and you have to spell it. Basically, it's just a massive spell fight, And Luciferon also dropped the Tome of Tranquilizing Shot, which is needed for Magmadar, because Magmadar is one of Magmadar's abilities. So basically what we do here is just clean up all the rest of this area, and we'll get onto Magmadar. So the next fight will be Magmadar. So Magmadar essentially guards the first rune. So to battle Ragnaros, which is the final boss of Molten Core, you had to get all these runes doused, and you need to do a chain in Ashara to get your Aqua Quintessence, and then eventually when you're exalted with the Hydraxian Waterlords, which you get rep from here, as you guys have been seeing, you'll get the Eternal one where you have one that's infinite. The Aqua only has one charge per week, so you need about 7 people who have it to verse Ragnaros. So for this first boss Magmadar, basically he enrages, and you have to use Trank Shot from a hunter to de-enrage him, and you need 3 hunters as well to Trank Shot him and get rid of all his rages. If not, use Shield Wall on a tank, or just overheal the tank and pray he lives. The other mechanic is that occasionally he fears. So technically Fear, Ward, and Tremor are much needed for the tanks, or the tanks needs to stand stance. The term stand stance means basically as you go into Berserker stance, pop Berserker Fury, and then go back into defensive stance before the fear goes off, so you don't, of course you don't get whacked around with a whole bunch of damage. Okay? And you don't want to get rocked around by a whole bunch of damage while you're in Berserker stance. Because back in those days, Berserker stance had a really mean damage penalty. I think it was 10% extra damage, and you didn't want to have that compared to defensive stance who had 10% damage reduction. So next up is Gehenna. Gehenna does have a magical debuff and a curse which you can easily dispel. He also has a Rain of Fire that you just have to move out of. What you usually do, you used to clear all this area so you could move Gehenna out of the Rain of Fire. So you basically kill all the core hounds and stuff like that here and the Fire Lords, and that's what you would do. The next up here is Gar. So basically you clear all the mobs here. Like every single mob here you would clear, okay? The main reason is because Gar, you need this area cleared for another boss, not for Gar necessarily so. You want it cleared for another boss, which you'll be coming up shortly, okay? As that aggro's Gar. So with Gar, what you usually do is you basically kill all the Fireswarm before going on Gar. You don't need a rebuff before Gar at all, because Gar will essentially dispel all your buffs, okay? So it doesn't even matter what you do, okay? What you would do is you basically banish all the Fireswarms, and basically you do one at a time. When the Fireswarms die, they explode and knock you back. So you basically, when it's on 2%, you want to get away from it, or 5% get away from it, let the range kill it. Also, once you've dealt with all the Fireswarms, basically just kill Gar and that's it. Gar's not a hard fight. Gar gets more attack speed, the more adds that are up, okay? And generally what Warlocks did was they used blueberries, known as Voidwalkers, to tank the ads just in case it became free. So down here is the next 2 bosses, which is going to be Baron Geddon and Shazra. So what you did is basically you go through the cabin and pull all these trash mobs. The main reason why you want to do that is so basically you can pull Baron Geddon and Shazra back to this room. You want to pull Baron Geddon and Shazra back to Gar's room, because basically for Baron Geddon has an ability called Living Bomb, and there's a little nook there in Gar's room where you just go up and you hit the top of the roof and go back down. If you let Living Bomb do its full knock up, the person will die to fall damage. So you need to make sure that the person doesn't die to fall damage. So what you did is basically you pulled all these things in a room, so the hunter could pull, Shazra and Gar without any issues. And you need to put on your fire resist for these trash mobs because they have a stun and they have an AoE. So for Baron Geddon, basically all his mechanics is the bomb and also burn mana. He put ignite mana on random targets. You need to dispel that immediately. Also, he did a little fire thing. Basically, it was not a good thing for melee. He did a fiery pulse which doubled in damage until the last tick, which would instantly kill you. And that's why you wanted more range for the fight. Now, Shazra is a similar thing as well, where you want more melee for the fight. Basically, what you do, you go back to Gar's room again, and you have your 8 groups split into groups of 5, other than the melee, of course. And essentially, what will happen is that Shazra will occasionally drop aggro, teleport to a random area, and Arcane Explosion. And the group that teleports to needs to just run away and let the tank re-establish aggro. And that's essentially my experience with Shazra, okay? So, just giving you all the strategy and stuff like that. And I've got to say that my memories of Molten Core is definitely with Baron Geddon, because I was a Druid healer back then, and I was the person healing the bomb targets before they go flying up to make sure they had enough fall damage before going down. Because the Druids are very, very good at it, because they had Rejuvenate and Regrowth, which were the only sort of hot set you would actually get. So basically when someone flies up, they get healed for the damage, and by the time they fall down, you know, it's not the end of the world, because they'll live and they'll be on full HP. So next few bosses are probably more iconic bosses in this instance, being Golmag the Incinerator, which is a big tank check, and Sulfur and Harbinger, which we would call the meat grinder boss, okay? So back in the day, what you do with Sulfur and Harbinger is that you keep the Harbinger here, and the healers as well, and you have one tank taunt the Priest, and as a kill distraction up here, and basically you'd probably pull them to one of these areas. I think it's this area where they call it the meat grinder spot, and you pull it here, and you kill the Priest one by one, then you kill the Harbinger. The reason why you do that is because the Priests will heal each other, and you want to make sure they're all LOS from each other while you kill them one by one, okay? They can't be CC'd, so don't bother doing that. So what you do is you kill the Priest one by one, then kill the Harbinger. The Harbinger also drops a Sulfur and Ingot for Rag's Hammer, and you basically need that for Rag's Hammer, essentially. And that's pretty much it. You know, that's pretty much it for, you know, this part of the instance. Next part, we're going to go to Golmag. So there's a few ways to Golmag. There's also a little joke in here of Golmag as well, which I fell for. Everyone falls for it in their first time to Molten Core, which is you can see Ragnaros from this area. So there's a little piece of lava window after Golmag, which I fell for as well my first time here. I got baited by my guildies because, like I say, my first guild was a bit of, you know, a bunch of bullies, I'm going to say. Some of them were pretty cool and some of them were a bunch of bullies. And basically they lured me into there, which will instantly kill you. Back in vanilla, okay? It'll just basically take you, it triples the ticks of lava and it'll kill you instantly. So for this boss fight, you need 3 tanks. So basically what you needed as well is you need to make sure these core rages were tanked by separate tanks, and just one tank on Golmag the Incinerator. These guys would put Mangle on the tanks, and there's a stacking Mangle as well, which would increase the damage to them and put a nasty bleeding debuff on them as well. And when Golmag dies, the rages die. So that's pretty much that boss fight. And Golmag was pretty much a DPS check. Once you hit 15%, it's basically everyone on Golmag, and just make sure that Golmag dies. Golmag has a nasty melee AoE as well. So guys, after you get all the quintessence, as I said before, you open up Major Domo. So Major Domo is basically the person you need to activate Rag with. If you don't have any quintessence or enough quintessence for the raid, you cannot take on Rag, and you cannot take on Major Domo. So Major Domo drops a few items that's needed for Benediction, and needed for Lockridar and Lockridar and Rockledar, which is the staff and bow combo for the hunter. So what you did in this fight, what you did is you one by one kill the healers. So basically you CC all the healers but one, kill it, then you kill another healer, then you kill another healer, then you kill another healer, and then you start taking off the elites, and then basically focus on Domo. Okay, so basically it's just a CC check and kill all of them. Domo also had a mechanic of what he did as well, was that Domo would occasionally change his damage reflection on the ads. So they could have a physical reflection or magical reflection. And what you had to do as well is to make sure with the polymorphs, because mostly the mages were doing the CC, because polymorph you can spam throughout the fight, that the mages would have to make sure their polymorph was refreshed before magic reflection came out, because otherwise you'd polymorph yourself and the ad would essentially roam free, and it's not very good to have it an elite or a healer roam free, because they can also obviously heal, and the elite obviously can start whacking DPS or healers that may have, you know, aggroed. So now we're going to go to Ragnaros. So Ragnaros is a bit far back. And also with Gar and Baron Geddon, if you wanted to get Thunder Fury, the bindings would drop off Gar and Baron Geddon. And basically the bindings were usually given to tanks, because Thunder Fury is a very, very good tank weapon. And as you can see, I'm wielding Thunder Furies right here. And, well, the transmog for it, and I've already got the Thunder Fury and Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. So now to get to Ragnaros, you have to go back all the way back through to Gar's room, and essentially to the right would be Ragnaros. So with Ragnaros, there's a lot of memories here as well, because Ragnaros is probably one of the harder fights, and it's the only fight in here that drops tier 2. And with Rag, so the cool thing with Rag is that Rag was basically probably the first 2-phase fight that you'd get, as Rag had an up phase and a down phase. And with Rag, you needed copious amounts of fire resist on the tank, so they could resist a debuff called Elemental Fire. And Ragnaros is just pretty much a DPS check. is just making sure you lived and making sure you had enough fire resist to resist the random hammers and whatever like fire damage that came out of nowhere. Just make sure you had enough fire resist. I think it was like 100 or 200 fire resist plus a greater fire resistance pot to absorb some of the damage and to make sure you lived. Essentially, over time, is that you use the 5-second rule and you eventually kill Rag. If you guys noticed as well, that all the ruins that you extinguished are all on this area. So as you see, like all the ruins you extinguished, all the patterns are actually on this area. And you can actually tell if you've doused all the runes here. If one of them's firing up, it means that, the runes have not been doused. So now let's get to Ragnaros. So basically, the epic scene here is Major Domo dies to Rag, okay? Because he summons him, so Rag gets angry and kills him. Also in this fight as well, when you get knocked back, you want to make sure you get knocked back against a wall. If you get knocked back not against a wall, you'll basically fly into the lava, like this. And you need to get back up. There's a few areas you can get back up on. Like, you need to get back up on quickly, so you see my lava, lava's taking my health. There's one area here. There's a few other areas as well. I think there's one back around here. And, yeah. So pretty much you use these things here to make sure you don't get knocked back at all. So basically, also as well, the damage spread. So basically, you want to do a person here, maybe a person back here, and a person back here. And you want to make sure you remember your spots, otherwise you take more damage. And here comes the most iconic fight, Ragnaros. And the last boss fight of this dungeon. Now, basically, as you can see here, Ragnaros and Fingo having a bit of a chat. Wrong thing. And, well, the chat doesn't seemingly go well for Mr. Executus here. So basically, after Executus dies, you can engage Ragnaros. Ragnaros does not automatically aggro, and that's the Hand of Rag, just in case you guys are wondering. That's the Hand of Rag that you can obtain through basically Dark Iron Ore, Elementium bars, and getting the Sulfur and Heart from Ragnaros. So basically, you get that from the Thorium Brotherhood, you get to make the Sulfur and Hammer, and I think combining it with the Heart of Sulfur will make the Hand of Rag. Anyways, guys, let's just kill Ragnaros here, and then we're out of this place. So with Ragnaros, let's loot him for good old times. You can get a whole bunch of blues as well. You can sell an AH, and also you get, awesome stuff here, as you can see as well. Some tier 2, and you can get Wrath, and also got Crown of Destruction. If you don't know what Crown of Destruction is, it's the helm that Nefarian wears in Blackwing Lair. Anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the trip down memory lane. I'm Jose, I was your host for today, and hope you enjoy, basically what MC was like back in the old days and the strategies around it as well. And as well as Ragnaros, back in my old days of this, the first time I did Ragnaros, I got Storm Rage leggings on my Druid, and then we went to Blackwing Lair later. I'll probably do Blackwing Lair next week, so stay tuned and then. Hope you have a wonderful day, and see you guys later.